All right, try number two. And supposedly with comments this time. Anyway, this doctor from the University of Pennsylvania says, yeah, if you're an old white guy, you go to the back of the line. Interestingly, the Biden nominee for secretary or for surgeon general has also come out and said, yay, it's working. Thanks, Joel. Has said that the vaccine may not be available to the general public until summer or fall, which has me wondering, are they going to actually start limiting the number of vaccines that are available? Because one of the things that this administration, the current administration, is doing is they're rolling out vaccine as fast as they can. Granted, there are some issues with the Pfizer vaccine because of the temperature requirements, which means they have to be finding places that can actually hold it at the sub-zero temperatures required and having the correct refrigeration schedule and issue schedule because it can only be out of sub-zero for 5 days. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Which I kind of find funny, considering that in Israel, I watch a blog over there from an Israeli scientist, and he said as of today in Israel, you can call your HMO and schedule to get your vaccine. So if Israel can do it, what's going on here? Is this something that the administration is going to do to us? That's the $64 question. And Ian was good enough to, before he bailed out today to go to Dallas, bring by some, shall we say, drug deal tamales. They were very, very good. I ate way too many of them, and I'm planning on eating more later. And for those of you that have not heard of drug deal tamales, these are the ones that you buy off the back of a truck or out of a trunk, little old Hispanic man or woman. And the health department's nowhere to be found. But these things are delicious. They're handmade. They're made right around Christmas time. And Jesse says mine are on order for the 23rd. Yep. Some people can't order them. Other people have to drive around town and find out where that little old man or woman has parked in the deserted parking lot somewhere. And oh, by the way, you don't ever want to try to rob one of them because I'm going to guarantee you they've got a gun handy. But hey, Cedar, Jonna, yeah, sorry, this has been one of those days. I had to reboot the internet right as I was supposed to be starting this, and so things got a hair bit confused. But talking about food, we were discussing at lunch the Disney fiasco over Princess and the Frog and their version of gumbo in the video that they put up. And their gumbo had no roux and it had kale and something else in it. And I can't remember what it was now. But it was an abomination on gumbo. I think it was tomatoes. So literally an abomination on gumbo. And they cut the comments off after they got to about 1,000 in less than a day. And I don't think any of them were positive. But one of the better ones that I saw was an old Cajun out of Houma, Louisiana, who got on there and was less than politically correct and showed people how to make a real gumbo. And about every fourth word was cussing at Disney for the quality, lack of, one each. And at lunch today, Rita found a video, or actually an audio, of a couple of Spanish ladies, grandmothers apparently, commenting on a Rachel Ray video of fixing a Mexican dish.
She was making pozole.
Making pozole. And apparently, the F word came out more than once from these little old Spanish grandmothers.
As they were making tamales.
Yes. Yes. And John just walked in. Good to see you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Just got done pushing cars for the day. Glory of capitalism and all that.
Yay.
Oh, did you hear the news about what just got announced?
No.
Bellingcat just announced that they have managed to pin down who tried to kill Alexei Navalny.
Oh.
The FSB, and they got them recorded admitting to it.
Oh, good.
But apparently they figured it out last year, and they took the time to validate everything and verify all of it. But they just released it, and holy heck, the Russians really did use state elements to try and whack a political opponent.
Oh, yeah. Well, is anybody surprised by this? That's the Russian way to do business. It has been since 1917.
And given the last 4 years, it sounds way too familiar to what our political class tried to do, which makes me really unhappy.
Yeah. There was one Asian man ranking out a Brett chef on making rice. Oh, that had to be good, Louise.
Oh, that was Uncle Roger, and he went off on Jamie, what's his face, the British chef. He went off on him, and he went off on some Indian lady who also does stuff for the BBC. And Uncle Roger went off on both of them. He says Gordon Ramsay's the only one that's done it right so far.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah, Jesse, you're right. More to you, comrade. More key. Never happened.
But Bellingcat also released the audio from that they made a recording of conversation with the Russians.
Speaking of conversations and things coming back to haunt people, AG Barr today announced that they have found one more of the miscreants responsible for the Lockerbie bombing in 1988 in Spain, and they're going after him. That's going to bring back a lot of bad memories for a lot of folks. But it does show that the Department of Justice can do the right thing at times. The same thing, and again, I have to agree with Barr not releasing the fact that Hunter Biden was being investigated, because the DOJ in their charter is never supposed to comment on an ongoing investigation. Not what Comey did, but the reality is they're never supposed to comment on an ongoing investigation until charges are filed. So there is that. Yes, Cedar, rice is not one size fits all grains. And one of my better screw ups was trying to make sticky rice without using Japanese rice. That was embarrassing. Anyway, in other news, an old friend of mine was texting me last night. He and I were high school classmates, and he was another guy that was into old cars and hot cars. And he was always a Dodge fanatic. He had a pretty quick little 440 Dodge back in the day. Never could beat my GTO, but he tried.
What year GTO did you have?
66.
Oh.
389 tri-power, no power, no air, 4-speed.
Last time I saw one of those, he had it for sale for $10,000.
Yeah, should have bought it. Because right now, restored ones running 60 to 70,000.
Yeah, he had it restored. It was on island in Hawaii. I could have taken that home with me.
But he pointed me to a video, and I had heard stories about this car. There were two cars that were famous in Detroit back in the 70s. One of them was the Silver Bullet, and the other one was the Black Ghost. And the Silver Bullet was a 426 Hemi GTX, Plymouth GTX. And that car was fairly well known. And it was actually built by Chrysler using off the shelf and racing components. It was a street hot rod that they were using for testing purposes.
Like you do.
And they actually gave it to a street racer in Detroit to run. And this thing it had all the lightweight components on it, the hood, the front fenders, the bumper, everything else. No radio in it, had truck seats in it, the van seats out of the old B100 van. And it was like 500 pounds lighter than a standard GTX. Plus the rear end had been tubbed, so it had basically drag radials on it, drag slicks on it. And headers going into not 2, but 4 exhaust. So extremely low restriction.
That would be interesting.
But the Black Ghost was a more infamous car. And the Black Ghost was, depending on who you believed, a tricked out 426 Hemi or a faked up 426 Hemi, 4-speed, that would race, street race, but would never stop. So nobody ever got to see who was driving it. And this video was the history of that car. And it turns out the reason the guy would never stop was he was a cop. He was a black cop in Detroit. He was a former Green Beret, and he had ordered this car special. And it was a 426 Hemi 4-speed with all the tricks and goodies on it and what was called the SE pack. And that car was a legend in Detroit. And a few years ago, sadly, he's passed away now. He and his son tried to get the car running again. And they did get it running for a period of time, but it never really got driven. And then when he died, his son decided to fix the car up. This car had not been seen on the street for 50 years. It has now been restored and is running and has been to a couple of car shows.
Oh.
The interesting thing is it's totally unrestored. This is an original 1970 Challenger Hemi. Everything original, 5,000 original miles on it.
In about 5 hours, I'm going to need a doctor.
Yeah. And the son is never going to sell a car. He's going to hand it down. That car is probably worth $1 million just for the sheer history of the car.
I didn't know changing up the exhaust pipes like that would do that, though. Change it up on.
Oh, yeah. That was how you got low restriction. You either ran straight pipes back in the day, or you ran the cherry bombs, which were guaranteed to get you stopped back in the day.
A little too loud for the police.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I had a friend offer.
But what they did with the GTX was they ran it through Cadillac mufflers, but there were 4 of them. So the headers came down, and rather than going to a single stack, 2 tubes would go to each muffler.
That would definitely lower the noise.
Lowered the noise, but it was extremely low restriction. And that car was unbelievably quick. It was a 10-second street legal car in the 1970s.
Ow.
130 some odd mile an hour, quarter mile. So yeah, it was something else. But the interesting thing with the Black Bullet or the Black Ghost is according to Chrysler records, there were only 23 of those cars ever built in that configuration. And that one is the only one that was a black on black on black. So that black vinyl top, black paint, and a black interior.
Car must be hotter than blazes in the summertime.
Yeah. Well, it was Detroit. It doesn't get that hot in Detroit.
True.
But that was an interesting, dive down the history trail there. The other thing that caught my eye this morning, watching one of the news programs, is the smarmy, damned talking heads. Those people just, they don't have a clue about reality outside their little political bubbles.
And not just outside the political bubbles, but anywhere that they don't live or have never been to.
Well, there's that. But the other thing is they will never answer a yes/no question.
That requires that they do something involving taking a stand.
Because what they're going to do is they'll go off on a tangent and support their side of the argument, whatever the argument may be, or they'll go off on a tangent to something that's totally irrelevant to what the original question was. It's just really frustrating. And I would dearly love to see somebody get on one of these programs and call these idiots on this. Of course, none of us would ever, they'd never allow any of us on TV anyway, because we don't have a face for TV. We have a face for writing books. And we tend to not sugarcoat things, and we give straight answers.
I have a face for TV, but it'd be an episode of Cops.
Damn you, Jonathan. Boy's trying to kill me over here. Oh, that hurt. Oh, that smarted. Oh, yeah, that was timing. Oh, that was timing, Jesse, in more ways than one.
That's what she said.
But as an aside, it kind of reminded me of some of the folks that I dealt with in the military, especially in the intelligence world, who love to play, I got a secret, I'm special, I know all this stuff and you don't. And it's really funny when they get called on their supposed secret knowledge. Probably the best one was that I can talk about is one that happened down in Jacksonville. We were getting a briefing on certain things and prior missions and intel and all that garbage. And one of the missions that got mentioned in the brief happened to be one that I had been involved with, my crew had been involved with. And there were probably 75, 80 people in this brief. And the briefer got stuff wrong. And
Oops.
One of my enlisted guys was sitting behind me, and I heard, finally he goes, "Damn it, you're wrong." And of course, everything stops. And the guy kind of recovers and goes, well, you don't have access to the information that I have. And my enlisted went, F you, you're talking about something that I was in the middle of. I know exactly what went on, and you're wrong. And proceeded to detail the things that the guy got wrong. The only problem was the skipper was in the brief. So we immediately went to break. And my enlisted guy and I got hauled out in the hallway. And the skipper said words to the effect of, "Shut the blank up and let him brief. We can fix it later."
Hey, officer.
Yes. Well, my crew was a bunch of malcontents, so we were not exactly on good terms with a lot of people. But
You work with malcontents? Perish the thought.
hey, I had one of the best crews on the East Coast. And not because of me, because of all the guys on the crew.
Never said they weren't a good crew,
Yeah.
but just the idea of Jim working with malcontents.
And our maintenance debt was about the same way, including the young female that was on it.
Next thing you know, you're going to tell me that the current pope is actually Catholic.
Well, they're no longer Polish. But yeah, but those people just, they really, I'm getting to the point that I just don't even like to watch the news programs anymore because it's all talking heads. There's no honest opinion out there. And it's, what we need, my opinion, we need some honesty. That seems to be a missing component because the truth of what's going on is where we need to go. We need to find out what the truth is so that we know how to react to it. When you've got some talking head up there, postulating about, oh, this is where we're going to be in, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, they don't have an idea. They're pulling it out their ass just like everybody else does. Yeah. Anyway, John brought up a good point earlier today in Facebook. Folks, we need to check on our people. Check on your friends, check on your family. If you haven't heard from them, call them. If you don't get an answer, go over there. If you're not close enough to go over, call somebody that can get there. This is a bad time of year anyway. And the number of people that are dying alone is even worse.
Yeah. And I know who you're referring to. And yeah.
Between,
he's a damn nice guy.
Yeah. Between the COVID, the bullshit, the normal problems around Christmas time, we need to reach out and take care of our own. People are important, even for the introverts out there. Some of you claim to be introverted to the point of not needing anybody else, but you're wrong. We all need somebody. Who that somebody is, yeah, hey, that's up to you. Pick one, anyone, I don't care, but pick somebody. Which brings me to the next thing. Homelessness. The West Coast, primarily San Francisco, Seattle, Los Angeles, Portland, San Diego. Yes, and Cedar, that's a good point. The animals need rescued. The animals don't get a say. They can't reach out to anybody. And anybody that says animals don't improve your mood, well, I will say animals improve your mood as long as you're not trying to, shall we say, deal with animals and sell them, or you have Longhorns.
I enjoy Longhorns.
Yeah.
When they're served up in front of me, medium rare.
Yeah.
With a slice of guacamole on all over it.
Eugene has a massive homelessness issue. That's true. But what I want to recommend to you is there's a guy named Christopher Rufo, Rufo, who put up a video on YouTube called Homelessness. And he pretty much blows all of the arguments out of the water with facts. And the fact is that 75 to 78% of the homeless are homeless by choice because they're either they're on drugs, or they are just flat crazy. They have mental health issues.
Yeah. And if they were to try and come off of the welfare that sustains them.
Well, they have no welfare. They live on the street by choice. They account for probably 70% of your petty crimes.
Really?
Yes,
Damn.
because that's how they support their habit. Crimes of opportunity. You also have, as Jonna said, good point, professional homeless. You know, they're the ones that are out there begging on the street corners. And they've got that shtick down. Now, the stupid ones that we used to get in DC were the ones that would take out their iPhone and check it while they were standing there trying to mooch. But the professionally homeless live that way by choice, not by inclination, by choice. And that's where all these cities get it wrong. Because the other problem with it is when you go in and start, quote unquote, building homeless shelters, what are you now running into?
An increase in crime in a given area.
No, beyond that,
You are.
who's going to build it? Who's going to get the graft off of it?
That too.
Who's going to make money? What are you running into also? You're running into now a bureaucracy.
It becomes further entrenched.
Exactly.
They saw that in Utah when the mayor of Salt Lake City decided that she didn't like the sight of the homeless, and so she paid for homeless shelters to be built at the far ends of the city and put them near things like libraries where small children and families go.
Yep.
And that caused even higher problems for places elsewhere in the valley.
And you build more shelters, you get more homeless. Colorado Springs. Colorado went legal on drugs. Colorado Springs saw, I want to say 150 to a 200% increase in homelessness. People were coming into Colorado to get the cheap drugs.
And be homeless.
They spent money on drugs. They had nowhere to live.
But they had all the dope they could ask for.
Yep.
You know, this is something libertarians never mention in the whole let's legalize all the weed.
Yeah.
They never mention that in their arguments. I wonder why.
Yeah. And John makes another good point. The more you get more of what you subsidize, and the homeless do, and this is a proven fact, have a West Coast route based on the weather.
Mm-hmm.
They go south for the winter, they go north for the summer.
That's why I like living in the northern end of Utah. It's too cold for homeless people.
Yeah.
It's great.
But the interesting thing about homelessness, they can't go anywhere, they can't do anything. When COVID-19 hit Seattle and it got out, guess what happened to the homeless population? They hauled ass.
It's scared like roaches when you click on the light.
Yep. A lot of them ended up in San Francisco. And that's something that nobody has said anything about, is how many of the homeless got COVID.
Well, I mean, hell, right before COVID kicked off, LAPD was already dealing with officers catching bubonic plague and typhoid from homeless in Skid Row.
Because of rats.
Yeah. And you don't even hear mention about that now because it got overshadowed by COVID, but you have these things all running together at once.
Yep. Yeah. As Jesse says, the honest ones know that it will result in the stupid ones dying in droves and be more or less self-correcting. Not something you bring up in polite conversation. That's true, because the politicians base everything on money and power.
And what they can get out of it for their own graft.
Yep. And that's what they're running into in LA.
Damn, what's the name of that? I wish there was a congressman or congresswoman in LA who could help.
Yeah.
I think, isn't there one assigned to Skid Row area?
Maxine Waters, yeah.
Damn.
But she doesn't live there. She lives in her $4 million mansion in a better part of town.
Would you want to live anywhere near there?
Well, I always thought that, if you represented an area, you were supposed to live there.
Yeah, so did I.
And Cedar brings up another good point. Body lice carry black plague. And these people don't get dipped. And if you tried it, you would probably have 14,000 lawsuits even though you're trying to save the idiots' lives. DC, they sleep on the grates. New York City, they sleep on the grates because that's the warmth, quote unquote. The problem with that is that all their bodily functions go down those grates. So those supposedly clean vents aren't so clean.
Speaking of New York City, did you hear that the Restaurant Owners Union has started banning Cuomo from their restaurants?
Oh, yeah.
I think
yeah.
that's hilarious. They're trying to convince everybody else in the state to do it.
Yeah, well, Cuomo needs to be banned from a lot of places. He's now melting down over the British being allowed to fly into New York City. He's saying they're going to kill more New Yorkers.
They can't possibly kill any more than he's already.
Yeah. Well, it depends on who you want to believe. You know, he believes he didn't do anything wrong. Hell, he got an Emmy for
it. His ex-wife got an Emmy for her cooking show.
Oh, yeah, right.
No, she did. That's the scary part. She really did. Yeah. Shows you, again, just how useless some of those awards truly are when showing merit or demonstrating merit or natural ability or quality of a given product.
Well, it's like Obama getting a Nobel Peace Prize for being Obama. But yet Trump has brought the Middle East together.
Or treaties.
Yeah.
Oh, and did we notice that this year, two of those countries, the UAE and Bahrain, sent representatives to join in the Hanukkah lighting?
Yes.
I didn't expect to ever see that in this life.
Nope.
Did you?
No.
And yet it happened.
Cuomo won a Ted Kennedy Award? You got to be kidding me, Joel.
The Ted Kennedy Award? What's that for? Successfully killing a woman and getting away with it?
Oh, God. Nah, no comment. I try to keep this family friendly.
Ted still has the only confirmed kill in the war on women.
Yeah, that's true. Well, he got away with it. The other thing is strikes me as kind of funny is now all of a sudden this COVID relief package is supposed to pass today, but it's only 900 billion. This is what the Republicans were proposing 6 months ago as a follow-up. And we want $1.5 million or $1.5 billion. We want, or I'm sorry, $1.5 trillion. We want $2 trillion. We won't take a penny less. And now all of a sudden the Dems are all in on 900 billion. All because they did not want Trump to get the credit for it. How many people have the Democrats killed with their BS games?
How many people have they forced into bankruptcy? How many families have they destroyed and lives have they ruined and livelihoods?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. How many businesses are gone? Oh, it's all new Biden money because Orange Man bad. Yep, right. It's our damn money. Yep. When it comes right down to it, it is our money.
I pay taxes just like everybody else.
And that's what's being used to fund this crap. Yeah, Jesse, how many have they worse than killed?
Just think, if we didn't have to do with all this COVID nonsense, we could have repaired the Bonhomme Richard.
Yeah, that one is a done deal. You know, the other thing is, what's the future hold for small businesses in the U.S.? Biden's going to take over. He's going to lock down for another 100 days. If his Surgeon General's to be believed, the lockdowns are going to carry over into the summer, probably next fall.
What happened to 14 motherfucking days?
Well, that's when he's saying that the vaccine will be readily available. So, you know, now we're in a situation where you're a year and a half into 14-day lockdown. Ooh, I got to go back to a comment I just saw where Louise had said the Los Angeles MTA got rid of the bathrooms, so the homeless use the elevators as the head. I missed that one. I'm sorry. And yeah, that's another problem. San Francisco, they don't even bother that. They just take a whiz or a dump on the street and go on.
I'm glad I got to see San Francisco when I did before I went down the toilet. Quite literally.
Literally. Yeah. And that breeds more sickness, more illness. Yeah, I think you're right, Joel. We're going to see more Oregon state capitals. And I think that's going to occur in the blue states. I really and truly do not see that occurring in the red states because the red state governors are smarter than that. Well, other than DeWine in Ohio, but you always got to have the outliers. They talk about how many more infections Texas has, how many more infections Florida has, because they haven't locked the state down. But when you look at deaths per 100,000, which is the real metric you need to be looking at, Texas and Florida are half of what New York is and California is with the lockdowns. There's
a clue to be had from that.
Yeah.
People won't accept it, but there is.
Our states have less than half of the deaths per 100,000 they do. And that circles back around to, if you put this in a flu death profile, where are we? How many flu deaths do you normally get in a year?
Isn't it like 250,000?
Somewhere, depending on which study you, and again, statistics lie and liars figure. Statistics say 160 to 220,000 per year dead due to the flu. Right now, we're sitting on 300 some odd thousand dead, quote, quote, due to COVID. Now, how many of those numbers are real? Nobody knows. Because there have been gunshot victims that were COVID, car wreck victims that were COVID, alcohol poisoning victim that was COVID, and the list goes on. Colorado, 4 or 5 months ago, did a study that was headed up by one of their coroners, and they revised their numbers down from 1,500 to 800 dead due to COVID. What would happen if all the states did that? Where would those numbers be? I think they'd be significantly less than what they are now.
Probably.
As far as the Oregon State Capitol, I don't know how the people in Oregon can stand to put up with what's going on up there. I really don't. Because you want to talk about guilt by association. Portland is going to go under simply because all the insurance people are going to leave. They're not going to insure anybody. So you're not going to have any business left in Portland. You're not going to have any restaurants because everything's closed. What are they going to do? Where do they go next? Seattle, San Francisco, LA, San Diego. I don't think they'll try San Diego because there's too many sailors and Marines down there.
We tend to be slightly opinionated.
I can remember many, many years ago as a young sailor going out in town in San Diego, and we were told to go out in groups of no smaller than 5 because there were usually fights just about every Friday and Saturday night.
Sailors get in fights?
Yeah. Either with the Marines or the locals or the Hispanics coming across the border. There were plenty of fights. But the interesting part was that we usually managed to come out on top. Because sailors and Marines, when they get in a fight in town, they don't give a rat's ass about rules. and it's going to be, the old rule. I'm kind of jumping around here, but the old rule was you never walked in a bar in San Diego that had full capped beer bottles sitting on tables.
Those are weapons.
They're weapons. And if you did by mistake, then you sat down at a table that had a full beer bottle on it and you got it and put it down by your side with your hand around the neck of it.
When I started driving a car in high school, I kept a 6-pack of IBC cream sodas in the truck. And school, I just walk around sipping on one of those all day because glass bottle.
Yeah.
Might as well.
Yeah. And Joel makes a good point. The Bedouin flees the desert and brings the desert with him.
Yep.
Yes, Joel, that is dead on the money, and that is exactly what all the assholes leaving California are doing. They're fleeing California, and they're bringing California with them. I really wish we could put the signs up on I-10 and I-40 that says, Californians keep going, because we don't want you.
Not all Californians are like me, willing to change and be better.
Yeah, but you're the 1%. For once, the good 1%, not the normal 1% that we get.
I won't lie, I left California because they don't like me owning guns.
Yeah. Well, in Texas, you got no problem with that.
Nope.
Other than the fact that you don't even have a good start.
Considering where I started from, I'm doing all right. We're working on this one step at a time. I'd be better ahead financially if it hadn't been for the COVID pandemic and all the little wannabe Karens.
Yeah.
And if I may digress for a moment, I think the reason I truly despise the COVID Karens and their like is not the fact that they exist, but the fact that they had an opportunity to demonstrate genuine decency and kindness in responding to the people around them. And instead of doing so, they decide to go with the much easier virtue signaling and be raunchy and awful and stupid and arrogant. And I despise them more for that than anything else.
Well, Karens are going to Karen, just like tyrants are going to tyrant. And anything where they can exercise that power. There was a rather interesting discussion. It's one of those days. I've washed my tongue and I can't do a thing with it now. Interesting discussion on Facebook a couple of weeks ago about where do they fall on Maslow's hierarchy. And they fall in the esteem and the self-actualization categories, which are the two top categories in Maslow, because their esteem is based on their belief they are better than everybody else. And the way they actualize that is by acting out their betterment, i.e., becoming the COVID Karens. And COVID Karens are not just women. There are also plenty of male COVID Karens out there.
Mm-hmm. I work with them.
We never have figured out what the male version name should be.
Bitch.
Anyway, what is rather interesting dissection of that particular xenotype on in that comment thread. But there are so many things, to be thankful for at the same time. Most of us have our health. We have our friends. Reaching out to y'all today. I truly appreciate the comments, the feedback. Taking the time to enjoy the little things that we can enjoy in life. It may be nothing more than, a decent home cooked meal, or, the drug deal tamales, or a full set of days off this week. Good for you, Dawn. But enjoy the little things. It's coming up on Christmas. And I think we need to take a pause and remember what Christmas really means. You know, it's not about us. It's really not. And that reminds me of one other thing. The worried well. I had not heard that term, Cedar, but that's definitely true. Yeah, there you go. Well, Johnny, you're supposed to come back and stay this time. Jesse, that's gonna be a good one if you can coast into the new year. That's that's becoming the exception more than the norm. Uh, Folks, you know, at least folks that work for a living tend to be very focused and work oriented and tend to work longer and much harder than probably anywhere else. Uh, I remember the French were talking about at one point going to a 25-hour work week, which, you know, they already take August off anyway, so wouldn't make much difference. But the one thing you got to do is take time for yourself. You know, go to the store, find something you want for dinner, fix a good meal for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Good way to burn stress.
Yeah. Just don't burn the food.
I've gotten really good at doing a reverse sear steak inside my house. And I can do one for me, and then I can do one for my wife who prefers her more on the side of medium moving towards well.
Jesse, do I need to come up there and kick your ass?
Yes, on principle.
You got to take your time off. Well, Cedar, I appreciate that. But I got to say, if you're listening to us ramble twice a week, that's a pretty sad way to get through a week. It's self-care time and play with it. Now, Don got a glass teapot and tea flowers. Well, hey, Jesse, if you're getting it all, that's a good thing. That was always my thing with the folks when I was running programs for the Navy. Is I didn't want anybody to ever get to the end of the year and lose vacation time or lose leave time. That's just wrong. You've got to take your personal time. None of us is that valuable. Contrary to what you may believe, you're not that valuable. Probably the best analogy is a bucket of water anthology. And Obie's going off on something. But if you stick your finger in a bucket of water and then pull it out, is there a hole? The answer is no. That's how much our level of importance is in the world. You know, we don't even make a hole in the water. So thinking that you have to work, you have to do this, you have to do that. You don't. Take a little time for yourself.
I believe they said it best in Armageddon. If, you know, we're not making the best use of this time for ourselves on occasion, what's the point of bothering to try and save the earth?
Yeah, that's true. Oh, and on an ending note, tonight is something that only happens once every 400 years or 800 years, depending on which scientist you want to believe. And that is the Christmas star. It will come up about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour after sunset in the southwest. And what that is a conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn within less than 1 degree. It will make it a very bright star, and it is known as the Christmas star. So please, if you get a chance, go out and see it, because we'll never see it again in our lifetimes. And on that note, we will probably do one of these on Thursday, but I don't know how many of y'all will be around. Most of you will probably be on vacation elsewhere because Friday is Christmas. So wish y'all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And remember, don't sweat the petty stuff and don't pet the sweaty stuff. Take care, folks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.